Peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of The Observer Effect. I'm your host, Job Liddy. Today's topic will be words. Let me know how we sound in the chat. Unfortunately, our brother Makoa isn't going to be able to join us tonight, so we send him love, strength, clarity, all the good stuff coming your way, my brother Makoa. So let me throw the Zoom link in the chat real quick. Anyone else who wants to join? Whoops, wrong link. So yeah, much love, everyone. Like I was saying, this is episode number 3 of The Observer Effect. We're going to be talking about words and how they affect our lives. So once again, we're going to go over what The Observer Effect means really quick. I'm going to throw it up in the chat so you can see it. The Observer Effect. Oh, whoops. I don't even know what the commands are. Show's gonna get better though. Don't worry, y'all. This is what happens when you do it all by yourself, right? Anyway, so episode 3, we're in the Observer Effect. Our words and how they affect our daily life. Much love out to Master Bass Windu, DJ React, everyone else in the chat. So real quick, I'm just going to go over a quick excerpt from The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. The first agreement is be impeccable with your words. So I figured, it would be something good to integrate, give some information on that. So here's the excerpt. Through the word, you express your creative power. It is through the word that you manifest everything. Regardless of what language you speak, your intent manifests through the word. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will all be manifested through the word. The word is not just a sound or a written symbol. It is a force. It is a power that you have to express and communicate, and thereby to create the events in your life. So that's the first part of the excerpt. If anyone has any thoughts on that, please feel free. I've got a few thoughts on it. This is one of my favorite books, mainly because of the language that Don Miguel Ruiz uses. It's very simple. It's very easy to digest when you're taking it in. It's a lot of practical stuff that you can integrate into your daily life. He says that through the word you express your creative power. And just looking at that first sentence, if we really were constantly conscious of how much power our word has, would we use it more effectively, and would we use words so nonchalantly like we do? One of the things he talks about in his book is how we misuse the word all the time, by saying things that don't serve us or anyone else. And a lot of times I've noticed that we know to go to those because we've been programmed to think of those. And when you don't have something to take the place of your habit, that habit's going to come right back, mainly because if there's nothing to take its place and the habit is the only thing once a challenge comes your way, or once you're in a position where you don't know what the outcome is going to be, for some reason it seems like we divert back to our habits, because from what I'm understanding, our habits are something that our body understands more than our mind does. It's something that we've done so much with so much repetition that our body actually knows how to do it better than our mind does at that point, once it's a habit. And we'll talk way more about habits in the next show, because our next show is about habits. But back to what he was saying, it's through the word that you manifest everything. And last week we were talking about our thoughts and how they contribute to manifesting things. And I was thinking throughout the week, how do thoughts and words work together to manifest? And I came to realize that our thoughts are made up of words. And again, this goes back to what words do we have in our vocabulary? What words do we know off the top of our head? Because those are the words that we're going to revert to anytime there's some kind of conflict that we need to deal with in our outer circumstances. So part of this show is going to be a few different phrases and affirmations and just simple words you can integrate into your life and a few that you can even get rid of. Because again, if you're gonna add something new to your life, or if you're gonna replace something old with something new, you want to make sure that it's an equal exchange. So just a couple of words that you can release very easily. The word need. Need goes back to the lack. If you need something, that implies that you don't already have it. And this is something Makoa touched on last week when we were talking about our thoughts. Need is a word that we use all the time without thinking, simply because it's a common word and it's a word that's used by others. And a lot of the way we think and a lot of the words that we use are influenced by the people around us. And that's something that we'll also touch upon a little bit later. Back to some words that we can release though. Can't. Can't is a word that it comes from a limiting mindset, from a perspective of lack. If you feel that you can't do something, it's because somewhere in your head you've made the agreement and you believe that you don't have what's necessary in order to do what you say you can't do. Another phrase we can let go of is not enough. A lot of times we think that we're not enough, and it's a self-image issue, it's a self-discipline issue, it's a self-worth issue. And since we're not taught that from very early on, and it's not something that's commonly taught on how to deal with these kinds of things, we revert to whatever we were taught as kids, which a lot has to do with, our environment, our parents. And, this is something, again, that goes back to what Don Miguel was talking about. He says that we misuse the word, and misuse of the word is black magic. And since we don't, in general, people don't think before they speak, they're constantly misusing their word. Again, with not enough. DJ React says oof. Everybody felt that. Even I felt it when I said it, and when I was thinking about it, when I was writing it down. Just because I know about this stuff doesn't mean that I don't go through it as well. Please understand that I go through this all the time, and what I see is, the perspective I use in order to help me keep moving forward is every opportunity is a chance for me to practice my tools. So if I make a mistake, or if something comes up that I wasn't expecting, I'm learning to build the habit of going to my tools instead of, my old habits. Because from what I understand, my old habits aren't going to get me what I want. Not going to tune into the frequency of my highest self, simply because if they were, I would already be my higher self. So that's why I need to observe what I'm doing and slowly and incrementally change certain things. Because that's another thing that I was learning about earlier this week, is the holographic principle. And if you're not familiar with the holographic principle, it basically means that a holograph, which apparently our whole universe is a holograph, every fraction, every segment, every single little piece of the holograph holds the whole picture of the holograph, which means, and this goes back to the Fibonacci sequence and everything being cyclical, right? We're gonna emit the same pattern as long as we have the same thoughts. And going back to the holographic principle, we don't have to think in such big terms like we need to revolutionize our lives overnight. One thing we can think of is the holographic principle, which is, as long as we change one segment of it, it's eventually going to affect the whole. And apparently that is how we can have quantum leaps in our universe. And that's how the universe can make huge changes, in a very small amount of what we call time. Because of the holographic principle, one small change does affect the whole thing. And if we let it happen instead of trying to control it, then the change will happen very quickly. So that's why we have to, fall into letting go and what that means. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. I just want to get through another few things really quick. Another word to release is hard. I was thinking about it, or difficult, or anything that makes you hesitate from taking action on doing what you need to do for yourself. Because again, it goes back to what we believe. It's not that it's not going to be challenging. However, challenge is a good replacement for hard or difficult. Because when you think of the word challenge, then you can actually kind of play into your ego a little bit. And if you're competitive at all, now you're challenging yourself. And now you want to be up to the task instead of kind of being defeated by it, by thinking that it's hard and that you can't do it. Just a simple change of perspective, a simple change of words can really affect what you're doing and how you perceive things, right? So again, if you want to join us in the chat, in the Zoom room, I'll paste the link again. Everyone is welcome. I got lots to go through, but whoops, I keep putting in the wrong one. Hold on. 1 second, please.
Sometimes it's hard to be brave. It makes you feel like it's an accomplishment.
Okay, and my wife is talking to me over here, and she said, if we use the word hard and it works for us, it might be because we think of accomplishment when we overcome it, right? And again, the word isn't as important as the feeling. However, the word affects our feelings, so we do still need to be conscious of our word. And again, I'm still learning about all this, so I might make some contradictory statements, and that's fine. I don't claim to be an expert. I just claim to be someone with lots of questions and someone who wants to talk about this stuff. 8 Honeybee, Debbie, much love out to you. Debbie says hi, wifey. Wifey says hello. Much love out to you. Really quick, before I forget, another word to release is problem. And that goes back into, the way we think about when something comes up that we don't necessarily want to deal with. If we think it's hard or if we think it's a problem, we're already going into it assuming that it's going to take a lot of effort. And it's not that it won't take effort. It's, again, the way we perceive it affects the way we act on it. And if we act on it with inspiration, we get a lot better results from my experience. And the baby's over here doing some funny ass stuff, walking around with slippers 10 times her size. Yes, much love to Kuda7. Glad you're tuned in, brother. Big up to the Inner Worlds crew. All right, so I had to write some notes down because anyone who knows me knows that I go on rants and tend to go off on tangents. So really quick, back to the second half of the excerpts from the Four Agreements. The word is the most powerful tool that you have as a human. It is a tool of magic. But like a sword with two edges, your word can create the most beautiful dream, or your word can destroy everything around you. One edge is the misuse of the word. It creates a living hell. The other edge is the impeccability of the word, which will only create beauty, love, and heaven on earth. Depending on how it is used, the word can set you free, or it can enslave you more than you know. All the magic you possess is based on your word. Your word is pure magic, and the misuse is black magic. Some powerful stuff, yo. And again, I highly recommend reading this book if you haven't already. It's The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And, again, going back to the misuse of the word, and one thing that he talks about in the book that really changed my perspective on a lot of stuff is gossip. Gossip is a misuse of the word, and he uses the analogy of a computer virus. He says that we use the same language to create the gossip. However, it's created with the intent of causing harm. And the more we spread gossip, the more it acts like a computer virus. And if anybody's ever had a computer virus, you know that once it's been around long enough, your system crashes and it no longer works and it can't function properly. So he relates that to the way we think. The more we use gossip as a form of communication, the more it clouds our thoughts and the more it plays into the creation of a living hell simply because of how much our thoughts affect our reality. So, I love the way he talks about it. And, there's a lot more about this, when he talks about the impeccability of the word only creating beauty, love, and heaven on earth. This reminds me of what Makoa brought up last week with that James Allen quote about tending to your garden. Are you cultivating your garden, or are you neglecting the garden? And as I was thinking about that throughout the week, I started to realize that, Don Miguel Ruiz mentions in the book that in your garden, the soil is prepared for certain types of seeds, and our thoughts are those seeds. And what tills the soil and what gets the soil ready for those seeds is our words. Our words are the tools that till the soil. So the more we focus on words and feelings of love, and the more we say them, the more we start to till our soil, and it's ready for the seeds of love. Because one thing he points out is, if your garden is only ready for seeds of hate, then that's all it's going to take in. And even when people give you seeds of love, they're not going to sink in. They're not going to grow roots, because the environment isn't such where it can do that, right? So I lost my train of thought on that. But I know, Sacha, yeah. Another thing that that I learned, or that came to me today, I'm not sure how many of you know this or not. I work at Agape International Spiritual Center, which is run by Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's a pretty big world-renowned spiritual leader, and I get to work with his organization, and I get my weekly dose of all this kind of information. So Sundays are great because I learned a bunch today, which I can integrate into the show. And the speaker today was Kim Stanwood Terranova, and she was talking about getting the field ready in order to manifest what you want, right? Had to hydrate real quick. So yeah, she was talking about getting the field ready. And on my drive home, I started to realize that a field is basically just a bigger version of a garden. And the field, that a lot of the ancients talk about, a lot of people relate to like an actual physical field. And now, after hearing a few people speak, I'm starting to understand that they were talking about the quantum field. They just didn't have that kind of language to express it back then. Much love to our boy Soul Rebel Sound. Glad you could tune in, brother. I see you. So yeah, the field is a bigger version of a garden, and as long as we all tend to our garden, then the field will be healthy. A lot of times we feel like we need to go tend to other people's garden, and that creates neglect for our garden. And again, so as long as we take care of our garden and we cultivate it properly, it will add to the health of the overall field, the collective field, right? And if we do it, it also seeps into other gardens, because again, it's like the monkey see, monkey do effect. If someone sees you tending to your garden and they see good results, they think, oh, maybe I can do that as well. And that's why another big reason we're doing our show the way we're doing it and inviting our community instead of having, quote unquote experts, is because we want to show by example that everyday people that we know, our peers, are thinking in a very elevated way, and a lot of them want to talk about it. So Makoa and I felt that, if someone needed to facilitate it, why not us? And it's not that only we can facilitate it. Again, we're doing by example what we want others to do. Eventually, we want you to go and do this yourself. And on that note, we do have a couple of ways that you can keep in touch with us. You can check out our YouTube. We also have a Facebook group where we can share thoughts throughout the week when we're not online. And I think that's it for now. Yeah, so we got the Facebook group that you can join. It's called The Observer Effect with Job Liddy and Makoa. And we also have the YouTube channel at Base Freak Radio, which has the archive of all of our shows. And we'll also be posting shorts and, different kinds of insights there. So if you want more of the Observer Effect, just check that out. Back to to another part of the show really quick. The reason why we want to facilitate so much back and forth is because I read this quote this week from Eleanor Roosevelt that reminded me. She said, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people." And since we're here to cultivate an environment without judgment, blame, shame, or guilt, we're not trying to criticize people that do anything besides discuss ideas. We simply want to bring it to light and observe it so you can make a conscious decision on what you want to take part in. We're here to discuss ideas because the more we talk about it, the more we get to know each other, the more we start to understand how others think. And the more you understand how others think, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to agree with everything they say. It just gives you enough understanding to create space to not have thoughts of judgment, blame, shame, or guilt when you encounter someone that you disagree with, especially when you're having a heated debate. A lot of times people have a conversation with someone else not to learn, but simply to prove a point or to prove to others that their point of view is right. And that's one way of communicating with others. It's just, are there other ways? Are there better ways? What is your ultimate goal? Are you trying to create? Or are you trying to destroy? One or the other. In a limited mindset, I don't want to say just one or the other because we want to practice being as open as possible. Just think about it. What group do you want to be in? Do you want to be discussing ideas and become a great mind? Because we all have the capacity. Last week we were talking about, or Makoa brought up how everything we need is already inside of us. We just have to tune into it. We were talking about how everything is energy, and energy is vibration, and energy has resonates, or energy gives off a certain frequency. And depending on that frequency, all frequencies carry a certain type of information, right? So we want to tap into the frequencies where we will become our higher self, if that's what you want to do. And if you're watching this show, I'm using positive assumption and thinking that that's what you want to do, right? So, and on that note, just really quick, I read something earlier this week from Wallace D. Wattles, who is another person I really recommend looking into. He wrote a couple of books that really influenced the way that I look at things. He wrote The Science of Being Rich, which is not only an amazing book, I came to find out that it's actually an inspiration or it was one of the first books in the English language and in North America that started using the language like the law of attraction and manifestation. Not that he created all of that, he was just one of the first people to start using those words, and that kind of started a revolution in the New Thought, Ageless Wisdom movement in the West. So he's a really cool guy. Anyway, let's go to what he said. So, and this is because we want to create an environment where there's no judgment, blame, shame, or guilt, and we all want to become friends in a real sense, not just friends because of association. And he talks about it in what he said. A friend is one who knows all about you and still respects you. A true friend is a priceless gift. when we reveal our hopes, our dreams, and our deepest secrets to others, and they still like and respect us, such people are to be cherished. All too often, the only reason others wish to spend time with us, to be our friends, is because of what they perceive we can do for them, not the other way around. A real friendship is reciprocal, one in which each friend benefits equally. You can earn the friendship of others by being the kind of person who deserves respect from friends. When others look up to you, it should make you even more conscious of the responsibility you have to treat them with the same respect you would like them to afford you. That's a lot to take in. And the more I read into it, the more I started to realize that this is a great expression of what we're trying to do with this show. You know, we want people to come in and be as open as possible. Like Makoa said last week, you know, take the mask off, drop those barriers, you know, let's break down those walls. And while we're breaking down those walls, since we're all practicing, I do want to remind us that there will be challenges, there will be disagreements, people will get frustrated, and that's okay, because again, that's a chance for us to stop for a second and think which direction we want to go with this. Do we want to keep the energy the same, or do we want to be the alchemists of our reality and redirect that energy? You know, take it to the higher level. It's going to take a while, because especially if the other person doesn't understand the higher frequency, simply because they don't understand it. It's not that they don't want to. And, you know, this is a great point to touch on when we're talking with others who are in parts of their journey that frustrate us. You know, it's a reminder to us that we were once there, and we are still there in a sense, because we still get frustrated just about different things, you know. And it's a great reminder to not only practice not being judgmental, also to remember that if we truly want to be accepted by others as our true self, we really, like he said, we need to extend that olive branch. We need to practice the same. We need to practice accepting others as they are. And again, it doesn't mean we agree with everything they say. It doesn't even necessarily mean that we like the person. It does mean, though, that we love them and that we aren't misdirecting our energy or misusing our word when addressing those people. Because that's one thing that I think gossip plays into a bunch, is the way we feel about people is the way we talk about them. And once, you know, this is a little on a tangent. However, I was thinking about how John Maxwell talks about the rule of 10. He says, if we're using 1 and 10 as a scale for people's effectiveness, let's always see them as a 10. If we do that long enough, they will become that 10, simply because we are demonstrating to them. And probably, you know, I'm just thinking about it right now, while we're demonstrating to them that they are 10, we are helping them get familiar with that feeling of being the 10. You know, as I'm talking, I'm realizing that a lot of times we don't get there simply because we've forgotten what that feeling is. You know, a lot of times we get so stuck in not only the habit of feeling bad, we also get so addicted to the chemical reaction of feeling bad or sad or drama, or, you know, living in that victim mentality. We're so addicted to that chemical reaction that it clouds the way we look at things. And again, I kind of lost my train of thought on there. If anyone wants to bring us back to where we were, if not, we can move on a little bit. But yeah, I think that saying from Wallace D. Wattles is fantastic. And, you know, it's something that I'm going to definitely keep in mind when I'm speaking with all of you and, you know, everyone I encounter, is I want to make sure to show the respect that they deserve, whether they respect me or not. At the end of the day, I don't control what they can do. All I can control is my actions. And I'm not responsible for what they do. You know, that's another thing that we'll dig a little deeper into later, is how a lot of times we feel so responsible for others' actions. The more we get into our journey, whether you want to call it a spiritual journey or what have you, you know, whatever word works for you that helps you get to your higher self, use that. But whatever, again, I forgot my train of thought. That happens a lot. I got mad ADD, and I've got a lot of things on my mind. You know, my brain is on fire, and I want to share a lot with you all. I do also constantly consider, though, that we're all on different levels of understanding of all of this stuff. You know, just a couple of simple questions just to get a foundation on what, what our viewers are already familiar with. Who in the chat is familiar with quantum physics or metaphysics? And how familiar are you with it? You know, if you're familiar with it and you want to, you know, give us your perspective, or you want to add anything to this, please feel free. Even if it's not on video, at least in the chat. You know, it's really good to get a back and forth going, simply because I don't want this to turn into a show where I simply divulge information. I'm happy to share this information with you all. I just am learning more and more that someone just talking at you doesn't help you embody it. You start to embody it when you start to interact, because now you're practicing, right? So React tells us that he knows very little about either, and Soul Rebel Sound says he's familiar with it, he's looked into it and read on it, but he's no expert. Okay, that's more than perfectly fine. And I'm not, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not an expert either. I've been very curious and interested about it. And, you know, for the last 15 or so years, I've been very passionate about it for the last, let's say, 6 to 7 years. And, you know, there's always something to learn, because, or going, you know, if we're using the aspect of quantum physics or metaphysics, the simple act of us looking for something is going to create that, because, like we're talking about constantly, we create our reality. And Buddha 7 is telling us that he's familiar. Ooh, he knows about Abraham Hicks. Yeah, Abraham Hicks is amazing. Some people like her, some people don't. If she's your cup of tea, amazing. If she's not, no big deal. Eventually, if you look long enough, if you look long enough, you're going to find someone that resonates with you. And not everyone does, and that's okay. You know, again, we're all giving our perspective, and anything that gets you more interested in this, kudos, right? And just so, since there's a few people familiar, and some people are not as familiar, I'll go over some very basic things when it comes to quantum physics. So, science has proven that the space between things isn't actually empty. It's filled with energy. And that energy is conscious. That energy is what creates everything and is in everything. It is in us. It is in others. It is everything. Everything is connected, and it all comes from that one source. That being the basis, if that's true, then that implies that we already have everything we need. And not only that, it also implies that everything is possible. Because what they're proving through quantum physics is, when the energy is still formless before it becomes matter, it's infinite possibilities. What we see in the physical form is basically the end result of everything we're doing. You know, this is the fruit, not the root. Everything we're doing, everything we think and speak eventually becomes our physical reality. Before it does that, we have infinite opportunities to change what is going to become our actual reality. And damn, this dude from the 60s, he was one of Einstein's contemporaries. I forgot his name. He's pretty well known in the metaphysics world. He was talking about certain points where it becomes possible. Damn, I was going somewhere with that. Again, this ADD sometimes makes me think too many things at once, and I get lost. So let's go to Soul Rebel Sound. He said I find it wild how being on a higher frequency always leads to quantum reality. Most people who are on the path always gravitate towards it. Okay. I think that plays into what we discussed a little bit last week. Much love to Vidura One. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us, tuning into the frequencies of love, abundance, love, abundance, gratitude, joy. Going back to what Soul Rebel said, it leads back to quantum reality. And from what I'm understanding, it's because once you look deep enough, there is only one truth, which is that everything comes from one source, and that source is ultimately love, and that source is conscious. And it's consciousness in its purest form, which means it is no body, no thing, no time, and no space. Which is why a lot of people talk about, out of body experiences, because ultimately we are not, what did he say? We are not limited to this body. Our brain can tune in, or our brain and our mind can tune into frequencies outside of our body. And that's how we can be anywhere in the universe, because since everything is connected, you don't actually have to go from here to there. You're already there. You just have to tune into there, right? And that's how remote viewing is possible. That's how, they even did an experiment, I think in like the 60s or the 80s or something. They took this, a photon, which is essentially, it's made of light, right? So they split the photon into two. So it was two, there were two of the same, they were exactly the same. And they had this machine that was able to split them 14 miles apart. And when they acted on one, the other one acted as if it was being, basically responded the same way that the other photon did 14 miles away. And they weren't surprised so much that happened. What the scientists were really surprised about was that there was no latency. It all happened at the exact same time, and that's how they started to. Not only did they prove that it's possible, that's also how they started to learn how it all works. And something that Greg Braden touched on, and something that I was listening to this week. It's something I heard him say a long time ago, and when he said it again, it brought me back to so much feeling of completeness. Is something is only a miracle until you understand the science. Once you understand the science, now it's a technology. And that's why we always hear the word ancient technology, because the ancients knew how to do all of this. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't by chance. They knew exactly what was going on, and they knew how to do it because they were being taught this. Because before we moved into a consciousness of living in lack, we lived in a consciousness of abundance. And from what I understand, when you live in a consciousness of abundance, there's no lack, there's no fear, there's no anxiety. Simply because we can embody the feeling of knowing that there is enough for everyone. And why is there enough for everyone? Going back to quantum physics, there's enough for everyone because you create everything that happens in your reality. And that being the premise, you create everything you want. People can't take what's yours because they're not creating it. They're creating their own stuff. And that, this goes back to a bunch of the old sayings of, don't covet thy neighbor's stuff. You don't need to go after someone else's stuff. You can create it on your own. The reason why we think we have to go find or go take it from someone else is because that's the frequency we've lived in long enough for it to become the norm and what's accepted. And the only reason it's accepted is because we've lived in that frequency long enough for it to be perpetually experienced in our physical reality. And since everything is shifting, we're going back to, again, thinking on a different frequency, right? And Soul Rebel Sound is saying, I think the movie Avatar, the first one, where they talk about the trees connect to every other tree on the planet, is very good visual representation of everything being connected. Yeah, man, 100% true. And that's also true in reality, or whatever you want to call reality. Scientists have proven that everything in an ecosystem is connected. So all the animals, all the plants, all the trees, all the flowers in a certain area, they all contribute to that ecosystem because they carry a certain frequency, and that frequency adds to the electromagnetic fingerprint of that ecosystem. So everything is important and everything is connected. And it's interesting you mentioned the movie Avatar. I don't really watch movies. I know a lot of people that do, so they give me the gist of all these things. Apparently, Avatar, the new Avatar, is a take on I forgot the beings not from Earth that were aquatic based, that came here and settled in the sea and all that. And we'll get into different types of things like that much later on. We're not going to be talking about conspiracy theory stuff. We're going to be touching on things that people talk about when they bring up conspiracy theory stuff. But yeah, apparently that the new Avatar movie has a lot of references to the aquatic people that came a long time ago and settled in the sea. So if you want to look more into that, go ahead. This show is about getting people interested and in looking for stuff or looking more into things on their own. People thinking for themselves and coming to their own conclusions about everything, instead of just, being a copy and paste society where you just take other people's opinions and beliefs and make them your own. And that's something we'll touch a little bit deeper on in our show at the end of the month, which is going to be about our identity. Let's see. So, let's see a couple of things before I forget. Oh, so every show we're going to have a few questions for our viewers. That's anyone that's listening to this, either people live with us or anyone in the archives watching this later on. We have a few questions that you can, take with you throughout the week and maybe even use as, as a replacement for a thought that you were having beforehand that wasn't serving you. So the first question I have for you today is, what words do you use most every day? You don't have to answer, especially if you use vulgar words like myself. I just want you to think about it and see if that word is serving you or not. And I use the word serving you again because I'm practicing getting out of the commonplace ways of thinking of good, bad, right, wrong. Does it serve you or does it not serve you? That is the most neutral thing I can think about. Or the most neutral way I can think about saying that is, what serves you and what doesn't. And I mean, I'll be honest, I use a lot of really bad words on a daily basis, and it's getting better. I'm getting better at the practice of catching myself while I'm saying the words. Like the F word, I've learned to say fun or fantastic. A lot of times it's sarcastic, obviously. However, even in the sarcasm, it gives me enough space to laugh at myself. And once I laugh at myself, I stop taking it so seriously. And, on that note, there's something I was talking to someone about earlier this week in one of my consultations, where we were talking about taking life seriously. And something that I don't remember who said this to me, but it really changed the way I think about it, about life and how I view it, is life is important and things are important. They're not serious. Once we become serious, we become rigid and more narrow-minded. So something to think about, if it works for you, great. If not, no big worries. And over here, Vidura 1 is telling me they say fudge. Anything that gives you that space to take a step back and just analyze and, look at what's going on. Is this a thought process? And are these words that are helping you get to your higher self? If they are, great. If they're not, no big deal. No reason to judge ourselves. A lot of times we start beating ourselves up because we think, oh, I'm not getting better. Or, I've been doing this forever, but it's not working. We have to remember that we're going to do this forever. It's not only a lifelong practice, it's a practice for eternity. That's the whole purpose of this consciousness, to experience. The consciousness wanted to experience everything. And it's crazy. We'll talk more about consciousness and how it views different things and how it's split up into duality because it wanted to be able to experience stuff. We'll talk a lot more about that in a later episode. I do want to stick to words here, though. Let's see. Next question. Real quick, that last question was, what words do you use most every day? Are they inspiring? Are they fear-inducing? And again, don't judge yourself if it's fear-inducing. So many of our ingrained habits are in that frequency, and it's because it ties into the social, the collective consciousness. It ties into generational trauma. It ties into a lot of different things. We have to be easy on ourselves by remembering that we're dealing with some very, very important and very ingrained things, if that makes any sense. So next question, what words do you need to use in an assumptive manner in order to have the feeling of already having everything you need? Again, what words do you need to use in an assumptive manner in order to have the feeling of already having everything you need? You don't need to answer it now, just again, something to take with you throughout the week. And it could change, it's not going to be one phrase isn't going to work forever. Simply because we're not the same person we were a few minutes ago. Some people revert back to who they were. However, you're always becoming your newer self. It just boils down to what decisions you're making every moment. Are you choosing to stay in the past? Are you choosing to think too much about the future? Or are you doing your best to be present in the now to see what's actually in front of you and tuning into the blessings that are already there, right? Let's see. Soul Rebel Sound says, I honestly don't use words in such a thought out way. I live more on the spur of the moment and react on feelings while trying to be logical. Okay. And, while you bring up being spur of the moment and reacting on feelings, let's take a second to talk about the word react and the word respond. There is a difference. And from what I understand, the difference is a reaction is based in our habits. Our response is based on us being present and conscious. A response usually is thought out. A reaction is that gut feeling, that on the spot, that first thing you think, right? And if anyone has a different take on it, let us know. I'm happy to discuss it. Let's see. Vidura1 says, I work with nonverbal people with autism. I use a lot of words to communicate, even numbers. Okay, that's interesting, Vidura1. Working with people who have autism, a lot of them don't speak a lot. However, they use their body language and other forms of communication. It's just learning how they communicate in order to interact with them, right? And using numbers, numbers are a great way of communication. They're mathematics. Mathematics is a universal language. It's something that everyone can understand once they know the premise and the basics. Master Base Windu says, I think a lot about what I say, maybe too much, but I've gotten into the habit of what words not only mean to me, but to others. Yeah, it's something to really consider when we're interacting with other people. A lot of times we assume that that a certain word means to others the same thing it means to us. And a lot of times there's a lot of correlation and there's a lot of similarity. Something that Don Miguel Ruiz talks about in his book is being brave enough to ask the question. The more we ask questions, the more clear we will take something in from someone else. I don't know. I couldn't even make that a clear sentence. Sorry for that sentence. It's all good, Master Base Windu. I just provided one just as weird. And it's all good. We're practicing, right? We're practicing. Let's see. So what were we going over? Oh yeah. So what words do you need to use in an assumptive manner in order to have the feeling of already having everything you need? Let's take a second and think of a time where you felt accomplished and complete. Because once you, again, going back to something we talked about earlier, a lot of people have gotten so far away from the feeling they don't even remember what it's like to tap into it. And when they do, it's so foreign to them that they sometimes don't even like the feeling. And they think it's fake because they're so unfamiliar with it at that point. And from what I'm understanding, that plays into a lot of our ego, because the ego feeds on the known and it feels comfortable in the known. So when the unknown is presented to us, that's why sometimes it's so hard for us to accept it, right? And, sorry, getting a little parched here. Next question is, what words do you use when you talk to others? And it's funny that Master Base Windu actually brought that up a couple minutes ago. What words do we use when we talk to others? And not only to others that are in front of us, but to others when they're not with us. Are we gossiping? Are we talking about people with opinions that don't serve either one of us? Are we talking badly about people? And why are we talking badly about people? You know, there's got to be a reason why we've all gotten so comfortable with gossip. You know, it's becoming more commonplace for people not to want to gossip. At the same time, you know, I was actually talking to a friend earlier about this today, how he has a hard time going out simply because when he goes out, a lot of the people he speaks to are mainly gossiping, and he doesn't want to gossip. So he feels like he doesn't really know what to say. And, you know, he was trying to figure out what to do. And I asked him, you know, what makes you think that the places you're going are the places you need to be? You know, and he says, because those are my people. And I said, okay, if those are your people, then why do you feel so uncomfortable there? You know, are they your people simply because you've gotten used to their faces and used to seeing them? Or are they your people because you're sharing ideas and growing? You know, it's something to really think about. And, you know, I love talking to people about this. I, again, invite anyone who's in the chat who would like to join the Zoom room. I forgot I hadn't posted the link in a while. Links in the chat, anyone who wants to join us. Yeah, what words do you use when you talk to others? I used to use words that didn't serve my ultimate goal. And a lot of times it's because I didn't know what my goal was. You know, I was letting others dictate what my goal was. And that's probably why I was hanging out with them, because they reinforced the agreements I made with myself in order to be accepted by them and to fit in with them. Once I understood that it wasn't them that I needed to fit in with, it was the people that shared my same beliefs and same feelings. And it's not to say that I want to be around only people that share my same beliefs, because then that becomes kind of cultish. What I mean is getting in touch with people who are tuning into higher frequencies that have a certain type of information and knowledge that I'm looking for, which is the knowledge to better myself in order to help others better themselves. And it's not that I'm going to better myself for them necessarily. I'm bettering myself for myself so I can be of value to people when I interact with them. And, you know, again, it goes back to what words we're using when we talk to others. I do my best to really stick to inspirational words. I do my best to stay away from talking about people, especially others that aren't part of the conversation. You know, I'm comfortable talking to other people about themselves and exploring, you know, where they are. I really do my best to keep my words on building, on looking into the unknown, on being comfortable with challenges. I mean, the words I'm saying right now is what I say to people when I'm doing my one-on-ones with them, simply because I need to practice, so next time we meet, I again can have something of value for them. You know, that's why I'm always learning and always reading about this stuff, because I want to be able to add value and provide something for the community. And I hope this is being of value to the people tuned in. Let me know what your thoughts are. You know, what words do you use when you talk to others? Let us know. Do you use words that are inspiring? Do you use words that go against things, or words that go for things? Right? That alone can really direct where a conversation goes. You know, again, it goes back to interacting with people that like to gossip. If you talk about things you're for, eventually when you're talking to someone that gossips, one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to shift their energy and start talking about things they're for, or they're simply going to cut the conversation and leave because they're not interested in it. They're not interested in talking about things they're for. They're interested in talking about things they're against. And that's fine. You know, if that's where people are in their journey, that's where they are. If they want to change it because they believe it doesn't serve their purpose anymore, then it's possible to do that. All they got to do is learn some tools and have some practices. We're here to provide those tools. And there are so many other people out there that are also providing tools like this. We're definitely not the only platform doing it. We're not the only people doing it. It's something that's really becoming a movement. And a lot of people aren't hearing about it because you're not going to hear about this, you know, on the daily news. You're not going to hear about this in mainstream media. I'm not saying go to alternative media only for your information. Just be open to it. You know, look at people who are experts in their fields and look for people who are, again, promoting love, promoting gratitude, promoting being of service to others. You know, because all of that is higher frequency stuff, right? And again, there are a lot of people doing it. Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Lewis Howes, Michael Bernard Beckwith, Eckhart Tolle, who else? Thich Nhat Hanh. He's no longer with us. He's one of my wife's favorites. I really dig him too. Thich Nhat Hanh, he's really dope. The Dalai Lama. You know, there's tons of people out there doing it, and not all of them are monks. A lot of them are. And, you know, one thing I'm loving about the movement nowadays is that everyday people just like us are really providing incredible information that they've really dug deep for. You know, they're really deep into the journey, and you can tell they're passionate about it, and it's really cool to see that happening. You know, it's just really cool to see. And they're providing a lot of tools. You know, they're providing a lot of tools, and that's how I got off on that tangent. Back to our questions. Oh, we should be wrapping up in a few minutes. We're running a bit over time. That's fine. Let's see. What words do you use when you talk to others? The next question is, what words do you use when you talk to yourself? Think about it for a while. How often do we find ourselves using words that don't serve us? And what's more interesting about that is, why are we so comfortable doing that? I actually touched on it a while ago, but still, you know, why are we so comfortable talking bad about ourselves? And why does it feel so uncomfortable when we use inspiring words about ourselves? You know, it's because of our comfort level and what we're used to. Our ego loves going back to what we're used to, and if we're used to using words that don't serve us, it's the first thing we do when we make a mistake. You know, and just real quick about mistakes. Mistakes are perfectly acceptable. It's not taking responsibility for your mistake and using it as a tool for learning where things start to go a little haywire. You know, we live in a time, and it's changing. However, it's you know, a dying paradigm at this point, where making a mistake makes you lesser of a person. You know, or making a mistake makes you look bad in someone else's eyes, or simply the belief system of us thinking when we make a mistake, someone else is going to look down upon us. That alone is such a huge part of that conversation. You know, and it ties into how much we believe in what others say and how much others' opinions and points of view actually create the reality that we experience, right? And since we're wrapping up time-wise, I do want to carry on this conversation. Again, if you want to carry on the conversation, hit us up on YouTube in the comments. We've got a Facebook group called The Observer Effect with Job Liddy and Makoa. you can hit us up there, and you can hit me up directly. I'll throw up my link really quick. If you want to talk more about this, I love it. I'd like to expand on some of this stuff. All right, let's see. Before I forget, Soul Rebel Sound said a couple of things. Let's see. He says, I'm the opposite. I've gotten so used to accomplishing my goals, whether other people like it or not. I feel accomplished, whether or not I feel accomplished, like with my art and music. Okay, I'm the opposite. I've gotten so used to accomplishing my goals, whether other people like it or not. I feel accomplished. Okay. Hard to read. I think I understand what he's saying. So he's gotten to the point where even though others give their opinion, he doesn't let it affect his feeling of accomplishment. Is that what you mean? That your feeling of accomplishment now stems from within and no longer is based on the opinions of others outside of you? Let's see. Oh, that was about something a while ago. Either way, let me know if that's what you mean. He said yes, exactly. Okay, cool. Great. And he said another thing, gotta change your circle sometimes. You outgrow people. And that's really true. And, one thing I bring up a lot when I'm having conversations like this with my peers is that's temporary. If those people, or let's put it this way, when those people decide they want to become their higher selves, you will come back together. Why? Because you're going to tune into the same frequency at a higher vibration. So you're going to come together again. And that's all based on everyone's personal decision. If they choose to stay in the low vibration, then they've made that decision. So when they say something to you like, oh, you've changed, or why don't you hang out with me anymore? They're not realizing that it's actually them that has made the decision, not you. You've offered opportunities to grow the relationship. It's just that they happen to not be interested in those opportunities. And at some point they might be. So always offer. Do your best not to force, right? At least that's how I look at it. I always offer my perspective, at least when it's asked for. I don't impose my perspective on people that don't ask for it. And when I offer it, I always give the disclaimer of, this is my understanding so far. And if you've got information that will lead me to believe something else, then please present it, because I'm always open to new ways of thinking. And on that note, like I said, if you want to keep the conversation going with us, hit us up on Facebook or YouTube. As for this episode of The Observer Effect on words, I want to thank everybody for participating. My boy Soul Rebel Sound, Master Bass Windu, Ebony, much love. Vidura 1, thank you for tuning in. Kura 7, much love, brother. DJ React, thank you for tuning in. Everyone else, all the lurkers, everyone in the chat, everyone in the archive, appreciate you. And before we go off, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Always see the best in yourselves, always see the best in each other. Keep raising your vibration, keep spreading the love, keep getting comfortable with the feeling of being complete. Because once you are, the outside circumstances no longer affect you. They're still there, they still exist. They just no longer affect how you're going to create the next part of your journey. So until next time, y'all, peace and blessings. Much love.